Jai Jinendra, welcome to Adults Class 2, Practical Applications of Jainism. Let's start with the Nokar mantra. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Uchayanam, Namo Vaisarasahunam, Yesu Panchanamo Karo, Sarva Pava Panasno, Mangalalancha Sarvesi, Paramam Have Mangalam. So last time we talked about getting rid of stuff. How many of you honored your commitment and got rid of things?
Okay.
All right, the rest of us put it off. So we talk a lot about goal setting and how hard it is to accomplish goals and what we need to do to reach them. We especially focus on short-term goals. When you come in and I have you write down goals, I say, think about the next 6 months or something like that. And what I realized is we failed to talk about how to fight some of the things, your enemies that prevent you from reaching your goals. We just talk about how to accomplish them, not to how to fight your enemies that are trying to prevent you from reaching your goals, especially your long-term goals. One of those enemies is procrastination. Procrastination is delaying work on a goal until a later time.
Yes.
Right? So even if you're not a procrastinator, I think this will be helpful for you because your kids are procrastinators. And you need to understand how their brain is controlling them so you can help them. Okay? So thank you to everybody just joining us. We're talking about how to defeat one of our major enemies of long-term goals today, that is procrastination. So this is a picture by Tim Urban of the brain of a procrastinator. As you can see, the brain of a procrastinator has 3 parts. There is the rational decision maker. This is our focus on our long-term brain. This part of the brain does reasoning and makes long-term plans. There's the monkey mind. This is the part of the brain that wants everything easy and fun.
Yes.
And this part of the brain deals with short-term threats. And this part of the brain has priority. That means it will always take over the rational decision maker. And there's also the panic monster here. You can see here he's reading a newspaper. So he's not active yet. So what happens is the rational decision maker always wants to be the one in control. And the rational decision maker is always the one that we want to be in control because he will facilitate our long-term goals and make decisions in our best interest for our long-term goals. The monkey mind wants everything to be easy and fun. Doesn't care about anything else. He wants everything to be easy and fun and short-term pleasure and hates working. The problem is the monkey mind has priority. You'll always defeat the rational decision maker. Okay? The only time the monkey mind will allow the rational decision maker to take control of the brain, to take the wheel, is when the panic monster appears. The panic monster appears when there's a deadline coming up. Let's say there is a work deadline, or let's say there is something coming up where you can't go past it, right? Well, the panic monster scares the monkey mind away and allows the rational decision maker to take control. That's why a day before the paper is due, you can stay up all night and write the paper because your monkey mind is no longer in control. Hi, come on in. So what happens is that there are questions about that. Can you close the door? Oh, sorry. So questions or comments about that. Do we all understand the mind of the procrastinator? So what happens is there are 2 types of procrastination. There's the one that I talked about with the deadline, right? Where the panic monster scares away the monkey mind and allows the rational decision maker to take control of the brain. There's another type of procrastination where there is no deadline. And that's where our long-term goals appear. Because there's no deadline if you want to work on your relationship. There's no deadline. If you want to build a better network, there's no deadline. So the rational decision maker never takes control over your long-term goals. And the people with procrastinators' brain, this is how they get through life, that they use the panic monster to work really hard right before a deadline in order to get by. So the people that have the procrastinator's brain never accomplish any long-term goals because they're used to having the panic monster there to scare away the monkey mind. And not only that, they never get started on any long-term goals. All right? So now we see how the monkey mind has enslaved them. They are a spectator in their own life. They're watching their own life pass before their eyes, never accomplishing anything they want to accomplish because they cannot. Because this is how they've learned to get through life, using the panic monster to scare away the monkey mind. And so now we see how, so it degrades their quality of life. They're not the person they want to be. They're not the person they know they have the potential to be. They're not the person they know they could be. Hi, come on in. Jainism, come on in. So questions or comments about that?
Yeah, this is, I think, main reason for delaying the stuff. I mean, I do that a lot,
right.
Actually.
Yeah. We got a procrastinator here. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know that. Any other procrastinators here? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always like, there's like a box I've been meaning to send for work.
Yeah.
And there's no deadline on it, right? And every morning I look at that box in my office and I'm like, I'm going to send that today. And every day I don't do it. And I just ignore the past months and months I've been looking at this box that I just had to send out. I just have to make the label or whatever and get it to the right place and send it out. I literally never do it. It's still in my office. And because there's no deadline on that, I haven't been able to use the panic monster to try to get it done. Okay, so...
And I've noticed that this small things stays on the mind, and my mind gets occupied so much.
Right.
And I get irritated so quickly,
right.
Because I have this thing, and so I'm right now going through that actually, and I'm right now making a list where I just get the things done, and
So last time when we had that goal session, after that I started a notepad with literally the heading is tomorrow's list.
Right.
And it has all the small things like return Amazon package,
right.
or try this dress on, which it's like a small thing. It will take like 5 or 10 minutes, but it's just about like procrastinating. Right? You're like, okay, I'll do it, and then there are times like 30 days are done, and you can't return stuff, right? So I'm trying to check those and keep the list still there, so I feel like I'm accomplishing something. So just check that it's done. But still, I'm not doing everything that I'm supposed to, but it still helps me see, like, even if I didn't do it today, it's still on my tomorrow's list that I have to do it.
Right. Right. I don't know about you, but talking about, like, your thoughts enslaving your mind, I have literally said I shouldn't be doing this. This is bad for me, as I reached for a piece of chocolate and opened it up. I literally did not want to do it. I was reaching for hey, come on in. I was reaching for it and I ate it and I said, this is not what I want. This is not in alignment with my goals. And I did it anyway. I was a spectator in my own life. I was watching my own self-destruction happen before my very eyes. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Have you literally said, this is bad for me, I don't want to do it, and did it anyway?
Still doing it, yeah. Chocolates are the number one reason.
Right. That's what I find so crazy.
I also find that sometimes when there is a task that's there in your head, and you're going to do it, and there is not a deadline. Sometimes there is a deadline, but you tend to attach some assumptions with it. Mm-hmm. Once you start attaching an assumption where you have not reached that task, that creates a small fear, and then you procrastinate.
Right.
And that's what I have realized recently, and that's what I realize in my son.
Right.
He just sets an assumption behind any task, and that makes him stop and procrastinate on more tasks.
Right, exactly. And so that's one of the ways to stop procrastinating. Okay? So how do we stop procrastinating? The first way is to reflect on why we procrastinate. For you, it's this fear, right?
Yes.
You have this fear, right? It's different for different people, but it always has to do with feelings. Sometimes things are boring. We don't want to do it because things are boring. Sometimes they're overwhelming. or they produce anxiety within us. All right. What you should know is that procrastination is not about being lazy, and it's not about being unable to focus. All right. So I'll repeat that for you because I need you to understand this for the sake of your children. Okay. Procrastination is not about being lazy. And it's not about being unable to focus. When your children procrastinate, they don't do that essay. They don't do that homework. It's not because they're lazy. You know they're not lazy because you've seen them work hard on some insignificant things like a video game or an art project or something they wanted to do. You've seen them been able to focus and you've seen them been able to work hard. Your kids are not lazy, right? They just have this procrastinator's brain. And it's not being unable to focus. You've seen your kids focus on things, right? So if we yell at our kids because, why didn't you finish your high school essays? You can't focus on them. Oh, it's the phone's fault, right? I'm taking away your phone until you finish these essays. It's not like that, all right? It's an emotional problem, okay? It's an emotional problem, not a time management problem. That's what you should understand with regards to your kids.
So what kind of emotion is attached? Like, if they're not doing it, or even if us are not doing it.
They don't want to do it because they have a fear, they have anxiety about that, or they know that they're going to be super bored doing it and they don't want to do it. They're doing it because they procrastinate because starting on this thing causes bad feelings within them. So one of the ways to counteract that is to give them a bigger, better offer. That is, I will have this bad feeling doing it, but I will have a reward at some other. And that's why it's really hard. We always say, well, break down your long-term goals into smaller pieces, right? Well, you don't get a reward for those small pieces. You want the reward for having done the long-term goal. If you break it up into smaller pieces, you don't really get a reward for that. So you never start. You never do that small piece because either the fear or the boredom or the anxiety of the task is outweighing the reward that you'll get from it. So you have to give yourself a reward, a bigger, better reward to go through those bad feelings.
So it's not just a personality thing to have a procrastination?
It is a personality thing in that the feelings that you get. So we talked about, well, I have a fear to do this thing. That's a personality thing. Your child might have a fear, or you might have a fear to do something. You know, anybody here have trouble making doctor's appointments?
Oh, yeah.
Procrastinate that? Yeah, it's just like it's like some what is it? It's like I don't want to pick up the phone and talk to them, and then I'll have to argue with the person, and I'll have to look at my calendar, and I'll have to do that, right? Just I want it to be online and be easy, and I can take my time, right? It's whatever that is. It's that anxiety, right? And that's based on your personality. Some people have that personality and some people are like, yeah, I'll pick up the phone and talk to anybody, right? So it is a little bit based on your personality, but and that decides those feelings that you get.
Yeah, I used to be like that actually. Earlier, like if I have to talk to someone, I'm like, oh, can you please talk? I'll always give it to my wife. I'm like, okay, but I have to get used to that person. Seen it once, twice, then I start talking. But otherwise, but now it's changing. But
that's like when your child is a shy person, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't understand. Like, how easy is it? You know, you're in second grade. You have a problem making a friend. You know, we don't understand. We don't want to understand. Like, no, this person, they're gonna dump all their stuff on me if I try to talk to them. We don't understand that.
Also, if there's no deadline attached, then you don't feel the urge to complete that. For example, the doctor's appointment, the annual exam, for example, it can happen anytime during the year, or so you feel like, okay, I'll do it in January, and then it goes all the way up to December. So there's no real deadline, and even if you skip, there's nobody to ask for questions. So that's why also we tend to procrastinate those kind of things. And if you compare it with work, if there are deadlines, then
they take priority.
That takes priority, and that gets accomplished too.
Yeah.
But things like these are where we need to find some trick to make sure they are also prioritized equally.
Right. So you identified two problems, and those are the two solutions, right? There's no deadline, so the next solution is give ourselves a deadline. The second one is no accountability, right? Next, give ourselves accountability. Have somebody make us accountable for that. Participate in a group with this. Tell your spouse, like, hey, I need to make this doctor's appointment. You follow up with me the day after if I didn't make it, That way you're accountable to somebody, right? Another reason we might practice procrastination is self-harm. Many times we know we do things that are bad for us, and we want to do things that are bad for us because we feel guilty about it. So think about if you're doing procrastination as a way of harming yourself on purpose. Break tasks into smaller steps. We learned about that. It's very hard. We have to give ourselves a reward, a bigger, better offer for the smaller step that we take when we break up long-term goals into smaller steps. Set deadlines. We talked about that. Create a schedule or routine. Okay, this is one way to avoid procrastination, where you just do something at a certain time. At 3 o'clock, it's nearing the end of my day. That's when I do emails. Whatever I'm doing, I don't schedule meetings at 3 o'clock. I do my emails at 3 o'clock every day. And so I don't procrastinate on the emails. I know that's my time. It's especially hard with long-term goals and personal goals. Okay? I give you permission to spend an hour on yourself every day, working on your personal goals. Okay? Whether that's exercise or meditation or something, I give you permission. And if your spouse yells at you, say, Timur gave me permission to spend an hour on myself every day. Okay? Probably sometime at night. Right? If you can't devote 1 hour per day on your personal goals, whatever they may be, you need to rearrange your life. Okay? You need to cut back on work. You need to cut back on your commitments. You need to cut back on video games. You need to cut back on reading. You need to rearrange your life if you can't give yourself 1 hour a day. You need to cut back on family stuff too sometimes. Okay? That's like the minimum. Okay? Because then you're certainly not making any progress on your soul if you can't figure out how to get an hour a day. All right? Okay, minimize distractions. Sometimes it is about your phone. It's not about it when your kids are procrastinating, but sometimes instead of accomplishing our goals, we are goofing around on our phone. Practice self-compassion. This is a big one. You got to forgive yourself. It's hard at first to accomplish goals. We know it's very hard. Some of you have written down the same goal every time we do it for years. Okay? You still haven't worked on it. But you got to forgive yourself, because if you beat yourself up over it, you're just laying another layer of friction from accomplishing your goals. Don't beat yourself up if you can't accomplish goals. It's very hard. Reward yourself. Create a system of rewards. When you break up a long-term goal into smaller pieces, you got to create a reward for those smaller pieces. Okay? Don't use food as a reward. Okay? I've tried that. It doesn't work. I got myself into trouble. Okay? Don't use something else, anything but food. Okay? Don't use food as a reward. Use other things as a reward. Find accountability partners. Talk to your spouse. Help you be accountable. The reason we're all here is so we can hold each other accountable for progressing on our spiritual path. That's a great way to avoid procrastination, is to find a partner to do it with. Find an exercise partner. Find a meditation partner. Find a mindfulness partner. Find a Jainism partner. Find a life partner. Make your life partner your accountability partner.
Yeah, Timur, just to add to the accountable part. So I think 2 or 4 weeks ago, when we were discussing on similar topic, Kaushik started that initiative to create a WhatsApp group.
I saw that. How is it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well.
Good.
So we have like 7 or 8 of us who on every Sunday we then post how many days of workout we did. Uh-huh. So that's again a motivation, and also being accountable to whatever goal we have achieved. So just so that everybody knows that it actually works. If you're part of a larger group, and then you may miss out on 1 week, but then you try to catch up because you're seeing the updates come through. Yeah. So
where did you put that?
Yeah, I can put that again in case anybody wants to join.
Sure. Why don't you do that?
That would be good. Actually.
Yeah. So our goal is either 3, 4, or 5 days a week of 45 minutes of workout is what we try to accomplish.
Right. Another way to defeat procrastination is to practice mindfulness, because that will help you realize when you're being distracted. So I know I threw a lot at you. So questions or comments about anything that we talked about so far?
8 o'clock, also 8 o'clock, Saturday night, Friday night, 8 o'clock. This will be important, okay?
A question.
Yes.
You mentioned that we might be doing it because of guilt or to practice self-harm. That seems kind of maybe not an intuitive thing for me to wrap my head around. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Sure, no problem. It probably seems unintuitive to you because you're a rational person. And this is an irrational thing. Our brains are irrational. We might be procrastinating to practice self-harm because we don't believe we deserve to have the fruits of the goals that we accomplish. We don't believe that we deserve to have that, and so we sabotage ourselves by procrastinating things. So for example, we might not believe that we deserve a better job, so we procrastinate on the things that might get us a better job, because we have a self-loathing or a self-hatred. And if you don't understand that, I think that's great. You probably are not practicing self-harm. If you don't understand it, but you have realized that you are self-sabotaging, that's also great, because you should probably start realizing that you are practicing self-harm because you don't believe you deserve something good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, especially if people are going through depression or something bad happens to them, they do the same thing. They self-harm to just get over. And like you said, they just feel like it's just they don't deserve anything better.
Right.
Right. From a work perspective, it's a very valid point, because I know that there are many elements work-wise that I can learn and spend my 1 hour a day just to get from where I am to where I can definitely be, but I'm not doing it.
Right.
And I know I can do it,
right,
but I'm not doing it.
Why? It's hard to know why, though. It's easy for me to ask you. It's hard for you to answer. Why are you not doing it?
I think it needs consistent dedication for me to tell myself that I have to do this on a daily basis,
right,
to reach to that point. And that's the difficult part. But I am taking the easy path of spending time doing other stuff, being either on the phone with kids, doing my work, but not investing in the time that will help me elevate, go up there, because I have to commit to myself.
Right. And you don't know whether that spending all that time will be worth it, because in each decision we make, we always do this risk-reward scenario, right? And for long-term goals, when we break it up into an hour a day, we don't really know that that hour is going to help us, right? Because we don't really know that being at where we want to be will help us. Sounds a lot like Jainism to me.
I agree.
Sounds a lot like, I don't know if I'm a soul. I don't know if I want to go to moksha. So I don't know if I should spend the next half hour praying or playing video games. Right? Isn't this the most longest terms of goals that happens over many, many lifetimes? So, sounds a lot like the things that we learn can help us practice Jainism, because we don't really know if we want to go to moksha, or if we do, how to break it up into smaller steps. Or if we do break it up into smaller steps, how to make sure we accomplish each one of those smaller steps.
It is for example, a small example, that my son wanted to apply for certain internship. We know it's a very competitive program. Hundreds of applications are going to come. Only 10 people are going to get selected. We know everything about it. But still, my son tends to assume oh, let's forget about it.
Right.
Because he knows he won't be in those 10%.
Right.
That's what I think is a self-harm, where you say you don't deserve that because I don't want to apply to it, because I'm kind of thinking I won't anyways going to get into it. You should have to start believing, okay, just apply. What can happen least is you will not get selected, but you have at least tried to get into that 10% where you want to,
This is a great example of people who are a little bit confused about how our feelings can get in the way. That is, when your son sits down to start on the application at the computer, he's dealing with those feelings of inadequacy.
Yes.
He has to confront it by starting the application. And he doesn't want to, because it makes him feel bad. It makes him feel bad that he is doing work when the statistics say he's likely to get rejected, and it's likely to confirm the insecurity he feels about himself.
Yeah.
And he can't do it. And it's so much easier to put it off.
Yeah.
He gets a sense of relief, right? I don't have to sit down on the computer. I don't have to fill out that application. I don't have to confront the fact that I will probably not get this. And that will conflict with the confidence that I have, with the person that I want to be. And I will have to confront this fact that I'm not good enough.
So it's like a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
That's exactly how these feelings, that's why procrastination is about feelings.
Yeah.
Your son probably can do other things great. It's not about time management.
Yeah.
It's not about his ability to focus. It's about his feelings doing this thing.
You always want to feel good.
Right.
Whatever which does not feel good, you don't want to do it.
Well, I got good news for you. You are not your feelings. Your feelings are produced by your brain, and your brain is a part of your body, and you are not your body. You're a soul. So these feelings don't matter, okay? They absolutely do not matter, because they're produced by your brain, and your brain is trying to enslave you. Okay? You are your soul. You are the awareness, the light that shines on thoughts. And you can control which thoughts you pay attention to and which thoughts you don't. And just like that, you can control which feelings you pay attention to and which feelings you don't. So for your son, I mean, it's easy to say. There's a lot of work to get to that point. To say, hey, you're a soul. Don't worry about your feelings on this. Don't let them control you. Just do it because that's where you want to be. And if you don't get the outcome you wanted, it's still okay.
Right, correct.
So it's easy to say, but it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to all nod and, great, Dimmer, I'm going to change my life as soon as I get out of this thing.
It's difficult.
It's hard. How do we do that?
Actions is a very strong way to deal with those small actions, to deal with the procrastination.
Right.
It's like, just act. Let it be, whether it happens, it doesn't happen, just do it. Yeah.
The first thing you need to do is to start on introspection, okay? Self-reflection and self-improvement. That is, maybe part of that hour you spend for yourself every day, you think about the decisions you made that day, and you reflect on how you could have made them differently, how karma is affecting your life, things like that. You have to go back and review the stuff you did that day, okay? The next thing to do is to cultivate mindfulness and awareness, which we talk about all the time in this class, okay? You have to wake up and you have to monitor your thoughts constantly. You have to be aware that you're thinking. It is 100 times harder to try to do this stuff if you're not aware that you're thinking, okay?
But I also feel like this all also depends on what kind of work you do. If you do a lot of mental work, then you get exhausted.
Right.
And then you delay all the stuff like, okay, no, I'm exhausted and all those things. So that is also one of the reasons what kind of work you do.
Right. So we have to learn how to deal. We have a certain amount of willpower, right? And as we go through our day, that decision-making power and willpower decrease. Yeah. That's why at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, you can be like, nope, I'm not eating that chocolate. At the end of the day, it's a lot harder, right? Yeah. That's why we need to understand how to first let thoughts go. We practice that in our mindfulness exercise. Next, we need to understand how to take deep breaths and refresh ourselves in each moment. Okay? And that will help with that exhaustion as you renew yourself in each moment. Next is to seek spiritual knowledge or guidance, but all that is read the book. Okay? Anybody read the book over spring break? No, nobody read the book. Okay?
I read a couple of pages.
That's amazing.
I always keep it near my side table. It's always there.
Yeah, physical manifestation of mindfulness.
I just go and then open the same page again.
Right.
But I still read the same stuff. But I read. Yeah.
Tell me what you read.
So I was on my third page I went where they were talking. First was the universe and how we are, how Jainism sees there's no, we don't believe in God. That was the concept that I wanted to read. Okay. And I kept on reading again and again to understand it better.
Uh-huh.
Then I went with Lacius, the state of mind, to the farther page. It was quite... So I just opened that and trying to understand where am I, in that Lacia state.
Right.
Yeah. So these are the 2 pages that I read in my spring break, and I still come on the first page, that is to understand why don't we believe in God and how is the universe and how we believe in the constant changes and how all those things that I'm trying to get to understand that more deeper.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And you probably, because you've read the same thing over and over, hopefully you reference that as you're going through your life that week, and you're like, well, where am I on this Lacia chart? Or, what does it mean to not believe in God as a creator? And maybe you saw something on TV or you saw some religious symbolism and you're like, well, that's God as a creator and things like that. Yeah. So that's great. I'm really happy for you. And I think that you're moving along on your spiritual path. It'll be amazing for you. Questions or comments about that? Okay, another way that we can apply procrastination techniques to further ourselves along the spiritual path is to maintain a balance and equanimity. That is, it's easy to get pushed off your long-term goals. It's much easier to get pushed off than your short-term goals. So if you develop a kind of resilience, then you keep the hope of accomplishing your long-term goals alive. And this is, in fact, one of the most important things for you, because you don't want to stray off the path. Because remember, the goal is moksha, and you should be doing whatever you can to achieve moksha, right? And it's easy for you to get pushed off that by your short-term goals, by material things, by your family, by anything. So remember, the long-term goal is moksha, and the long term is not the end of your life, all right? You're going to be living many lives. So you might as well start now, because the earlier you start, the fewer lives you'll have to suffer through. Okay, next you want to embrace continuous growth and evolution. That is, this is one of the things that tripped me up, and I know it kind of trips a lot of people up, is that how much do I have to know to get started on practicing? A lot of times we think, I have to know everything before I can start. Otherwise I might be doing it wrong, or I might make a mistake or something like that. You should start now with as much as you know now. And if it's very little, then start with the little that you know. And then as you should do this in parallel. As you know more, you should change your practice, change your life. And as you know even more, you should change your life even more. And that's when you'll realize, I really didn't know what I was doing then. But it was important that I started to practice, even though the practice was all wrong. And now my practice has become better. Right. Okay? When I say read the book, that's great. You should know it. But don't give yourself the goal of finishing the book before you even start trying to practice Jainism. Start trying to apply it in your life. Start applying it to your life right now. There's not some kind of threshold of knowledge that you need where you can say, okay, now I'm ready to start to do this thing. No. Start to do this thing now. And as your knowledge becomes better, your practice will become better. So we want a continuous growth and evolution. All right. Questions or comments about that? Any questions from our online friends? Yes, Andres.
I did want to go back to the example of one of the participants' son. Through your words, I think there's an under the radar self-loathing that does come up for me personally, and I wonder if there's a way to kind of counteract that, because I know that in other schools of thought, self-loathing can be maybe the path to maybe ego destruction. Maybe ego's bad, and maybe you should get rid of all attachments and don't think of yourself too highly. Don't apply, because life is indeed suffering. And maybe the more you realize that, and the more you indulge in that suffering, maybe you're getting to some sort of truth or ideal. But I can see that as being a cop-out too for some people, to just not try at all. So do you have any strategies for counteracting this self-loathing when it does arise? It's one of my questions. Thanks.
Yes, that is a great point, and you've identified that all strengths are weaknesses and all weaknesses are strengths, because they're the two sides of the same coin. And so you're right, it does take an ego to apply to a position that you may not be qualified for. However, isn't the point of Jainism the destruction of the ego? We're supposed to suppress our ego, and that belies two things. First, two things can be true at the same time. That is, I can tell one person one thing, and that's true. And I can tell another person the exact opposite thing, and that's also true, because they're at different points along the spiritual path, right? So I can tell a child, hey, do good karma, focus on good karma. And then I can tell an adult, hey, don't do any karma, don't do good karma, don't do bad karma, because they're all hurting you. And both of those things are true, because they're at different stages of spiritual development. And so what we are saying is to face your feelings to accomplish your long-term goals. And by the way, your long-term goal should be moksha, right? And that will help you. So yes, we should encourage our children to have the ego to fight their feelings and think that it's worth it for them to accomplish their long-term goals, because one of their long-term goals is moksha, right? And ultimately, when they get there, they're going to start learning the lesson of destroying the ego. So, yeah, that's how we should think about it. Other questions or comments about anything we talked about today?
Sometimes while we are thinking on something that we need to do that may benefit us, we say, okay, think, and then take those steps, right? But that thinking tends to overthink, because then you just get in a stage where you don't want to do it. Because the overthinking is so powerful. That's why I just started taking it as, just act. Don't think much, because
Right.
it may go to overthinking. Just act and then complete that task.
Right.
It's that I have understood while I'm doing this stuff and while my children are doing this stuff,
That's great. That's a secret trap that not many people know about, is this overthinking that prevents you from taking action. Because if you don't take action, then what was the point of all that thinking anyway, right? Okay, so how do we reconcile our short-term pleasures with our long-term goals? Okay, so the first thing, the hardest part, is to understand what those long-term goals are. I'll give you the easy answer. Your long-term goal is moksha, right? It's going to be hard for us to start there, although we should start doing whatever we can. But also clarify what your long-term goals for this life are, or what your long-term goals for your retirement are, or something like that. Okay? Next, you identify those short-term pleasures. That is, what are those short-term pleasures that your monkey mind is trying to get you to do? Okay? It may sound, what I'm saying may sound like super basic and super easy. But when was the last time you sat down and thought about your life? All I'm saying is identify your long-term goals and identify what that monkey mind wants. But have you ever done that?
No.
And here's the thing. If you can do this, you will achieve legendary status. That is, align your short-term pleasures with your long-term goals. Okay? If you can do that, it will appear that you are a superhero to another person. okay? And this is what I'm talking about. Imagine if your short-term pleasure was exercising. Imagine like, well, you felt good after working out, okay? Imagine like you didn't feel crappy and you didn't feel like it was so hard and you never want to do it again, okay? Imagine you could give yourself a reward like that. You could be like, I'm going to sit down and do this application, and afterwards I'm going to reward myself with exercise. You know how in shape you would be? You know how attractive you would be? You'd be like a demigod to other people, okay? That is, if you can align your short-term pleasures with your long-term goals. So then when you break up your long-term goals, you, as a reward mechanism, you have convinced yourself that these short-term pleasures, even aligning the short-term, the breaking up the long-term goals into smaller pieces, even making those short-term pleasures would be amazing for you. It's very hard, okay? But that's the ultimate goal. Then you will see this multiplier effect that happens in your life. You know, imagine your short-term pleasure was, I am going to send this email at work, and then I am going to reward myself by doing the dishes because I know that I need to take care of my area. You rewarded yourself with a chore. Okay? But if you can do that, guess what? Your whole house is going to be cleaned in one day. Whereas to another person, it might take them 3 months to clean their whole house. Okay? So if you can try to do that, but it's going to be very hard for most people. Okay, next, assess the impact. Okay, so you got to check in with yourself, see how you're doing on your guidelines. Set priorities. Okay, so you always want to prioritize your long-term goals over your immediate gratification. That sounds really basic. It's really hard. For us, we just give our children the priorities. We just tell it to them, okay? Their priorities are health and safety, family, school and work, friends, television. That's it, just 5, okay? And whenever one thing conflicts with another, then they just pick the one that's the higher priority, all right? So I have to go to this thing for the family, but that's when I need to exercise. Well, health and safety comes over family, right? Okay, well, I have this wedding to go to, but my friend's having a birthday party. Well, the family comes before friends, so that's your priority. That's what you pick. So you just give your kids the priority, okay? And you just be consistent about, well, this is it, and you practice it in your own life so your kids understand, like, well, I wanted to do this, but this person is sick and they're our family, so I'm going to go take care of them, and they'll see you do that, okay? So set your priorities. Practice delayed gratification. Yeah.
So how you say this all the time, I give you permission. So I started using that on myself. I use it on Krish and the kids and Sheetal. Like, I give you permission. So like, this is like out of the blue, I have created this that they know they can do it.
Right.
But now me telling them, I give you permission to do the dishes. Like, oh my God, do I need it? So for some odd reason, like I tell Yash, like I give you permission to do the cleaning the table.
Right.
He loves it.
Right. Because I think what's happening in his mind, that means I can do this whatever way I want. I will take as much time as I need, and he's not going to bother me about doing it the wrong way. So I have ownership over this thing. So I think that's what's happening in your kid's mind. They're like, yes, I can do it my way. He's not going to yell at me. I'm going to do whatever I want as long as the job gets done.
Right.
So I think that's great.
I love it.
That's working out.
Yeah, and even on me. So in the evening after kids go to sleep, I tell I'm giving myself 1 hour to finish these emails. Right? I tell my wife, I've given myself 1 hour.
Oh.
Like, I'm giving you 1 hour to do what you want.
Right.
So she's
right.
whatever she's doing.
Right. She knows you won't come bother her for an hour.
And I know she won't bother me.
Right, exactly.
I've been verbal about it.
That's great. I think that's great. Other questions or comments?
I have a last thing. Anybody can answer that. Like, you do your work, 8 hours work, 10 hours work in the office. You come back home. I don't know how many of you feel that, but what I feel is many times you're exhausted. And that you say is because you have worked so much. You're sitting on the desk and working. Right?
Why am I so exhausted? I've been
right?
sitting for 8 hours.
Right. So you come home and you just want to sit on the couch and watch TV for half an hour.
Right.
Don't want to cook. Don't want to do anything.
Right.
And just the time passes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize, I've missed something that I should be doing and getting ready for tomorrow. But this doesn't end. This is a cycle.
Right.
And it's so powerful. You just go down so deep in that. Like I see you're really exhausted. You feel that. But I have also heard when I read books and I see people, you should learn how to switch on and switch off. When you come home, even though you feel you're exhausted, how to switch off from that.
Right.
You are not exhausted. It's just your mind telling you you're exhausted. You're really not exhausted because you have not done anything physically, mentally. Yes, I can understand you've done so many tasks and you want to relax. But relax can be also spending time with kids, having fun, going outdoors. That can also be relaxing. You can cook food. That can be a meditative part where you're just not involved in any thought process. So what would be an input to just fight that thought where you're completely trying to come out of that cycle?
So I'll add to this. Actually, I'm going through the same thing right now. So I always wanted to be developer and I was a technical architect. But from last 4-6 months now, they have made me a manager. And I hate to follow up with the people, get the work done and this and that, and a lot of things are pending and I have a deadline. So all that stays on my mind.
Right.
And after even the job time is over, I'm thinking about what I need to do so I hate my job now and I'm thinking what to do. But yeah, exactly. So then that things are staying on my head and I'm just keep thinking about it. And when the same thing, when I go to the Costco and Walmart and all, and I see those people are smiling in 1 hour of spend, when I see them more than the whole life smile even the next 1 week. So I feel like once they leave the job, they say, I'm done physical job. Done. Right. They don't think about job anymore. And we work mentally so much. So we just think about because we don't do physical job.
And I've also heard that if you love your job, if you're passionate about your work, then you don't feel that exhaustion.
Exactly.
But it doesn't happen to everyone, right? You're not always passionate about your work. You're not always on daily basis having that positive. So, but that cycle is just there, you're just into it.
I'm going through the same actually.
Does anybody have any help?
So what?
One of our friends needs help. We need to help her.
What I do to, because I've seen or I've tried looking at television, it makes you all the more exhausted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because your eyes are strained. So I try to take a nap of 30 minutes and not go into deep sleep. But that is where I am finding it tough because once I go to bed, and it's very odd time, right?
Yeah.
Because you're exhausted and you want to come out of it. So I try to take naps in between, which is not very healthy because kids are still up, they have stuff to do, and I'm just going ahead sleeping. But that could be one option you can try. The other option, which I'm now trying out, is to go out for a walk. Just go around the community for 20-25 minutes, and then when you come back in, you're feeling fresh. I think, and for me, it's work from home, so I do work from home only, so I don't even go out. And being at home throughout the day, I think that itself sometimes is exhausting. Of course, the mental thing is always there. You're thinking about stuff and all that, and that sometimes make you drain out. So that could be another thing that you could do, just to divert yourself and not sit in front of the television, because doing anything on any screen time will make you even more exhausted.
And another thing is also I would add is we have seen our parents doing that. So we are very used to it that, okay, my dad will come, he's exhausted, he will sit on the sofa, mom will give a tea, this, that. So he's tired, and yes, he has worked very hard. So we are in that mode too, that we don't do any other activity after we come back from office or the work is over.
I think one other thing that might help too is sometimes we get so overwhelmed with our own schedule and what demands everybody else puts on us. Is that sometimes what's helpful I've started doing is just blocking my calendar first thing in the morning, and I'm like, this is my time. And I know that if I do something that's going to bring me joy in this time, I can take that through the rest of the day. So just kind of prioritizing yourself first and realizing, what do I need? And then giving that to yourself a little bit, even if it's in small blocks of time.
That's a good point.
I normally discuss with my spouse, and like he said, we go for a walk. So she's not sitting, I'm not sitting.
Yeah.
And then I tell her, this is what I have to finish. So she takes care of something that might not be that I have my input, right? So she expects me to pick up kids where she knows I'm been bothered by this things to be finished. So she'll step up and she'll finish work. But again, I don't think there is one answer that works.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
One thing that works with it, I tell myself when I come home, I have given myself 30 minutes to play with kids.
I have to.
So start using that somewhere that I'm or maybe I'm giving 30 minutes to myself to watch TV.
Yeah.
I don't think that's anything wrong.
Yeah.
But if you give yourself time, then you're not. My problem is that's why I deleted all the social media. Is the 30 minutes goes into 2 hours.
Yeah, it's miles.
So now I have an app that blocks me, or Alexa, or Siri.
I had read this, when you scroll, just scroll, finish 30 minutes, 40
You
minutes.
get exhausted.
And it's like, you've already ran 4 miles. So it got stuck in my brain, like, oh, scrolling is actually taking your time. You would have gone outside and ran 4 miles. So that is so bad, like, you're just doing nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Start with 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's how I started. And I used to hate working out. I started actually waking up and watching TV. So I wake up 5:30. I used to wake up 5:30 to just watch TV. So now I established waking up. Then I bought a treadmill, put it over there. Not treadmill, actually a cycle. And watch TV and did cycle. Now at that point that I don't even need anything. I just do my
You're rewarding yourself with exercise, yeah.
Started with the bad reward.
And I like to do good stuff.
Okay, Arya came in, so now's our chance to remember that Arya is a soul, just like we are. She has the same age as us, right?
Yeah.
She is maybe even older than my soul, right? Same soul as I have, right? She's not a child, she's a soul. She's not a human being. She's a soul trapped in a human being's body. Can you see that in Arya? Can you see? No, it's not a joke. Can you see that she's a soul the same age as you? She's a soul trapped in a tinier body than you, but same soul, right? And until you can start seeing that, we're living in an illusion.
It's very powerful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate that. Thank you all.
Thank you.